Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sheila, and this is a Mazao Talks webinar. This is one of the programs we do together with our podcast, which is Mazao Talks podcast. So we have the webinars that we host. We also have the Twitter Spaces, and today I have a very lovely panel who will be taking us through a conversation about the future of agribusiness. I also have a small live audience today, and I'm grateful to all of you for taking your time and joining us today. Thank you so much, and I hope this platform will be insightful and you'll get to learn a lot from it. Like I said, my name is Sheila, and I host this podcast with Jason Runo, who is not here with us today. Our podcast and this webinar is funded by UNIDO, which is also funded by the EU. I think we're going to get right into it, to the conversation. The whole webinar today, we're going to be looking at the importance of data, like I said. And as we start, let me start by just introducing my panel. I'll give them this opportunity to do the introductions, then we can get right into the conversation. We'll start with the lady Winnie.
Thank you, Sheila, and good evening, everybody, those joining us virtually and those here in the room. My name is Winnie Yegon. I work with the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. I am a food systems analyst, but also my expertise is in food waste and food losses management, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Winnie.
Hi everyone, and thanks Sheila for having me here to talk about data in agriculture and smart agriculture. It's really a pleasure to be here. My name is Stefano Sedola. I am the Chief Technical Advisor of the Markup program. Markup means Market Access Upgrade Program, and it is a program financed by the European Union and implemented by UNIDO to improve the value chain in horticultural in Kenya, and therefore to increase revenues across the different value chains, and it is implemented in 12 different counties in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefano.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depending on where you are, if you are in US, it is good afternoon. If you are in Japan, it's good morning. And if you are in Kenya, good evening. My name is Tom Dienya. I work in the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, and I'm the head of the Agriculture Statistics Unit, and also the chair of the subcommittee on digital transformation, technical committee on digital transformation. I'm very happy to be here. I was invited by the team from UNIDO, but since I'm the one representing the government, it is my duty to welcome you all and inform you that you are safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. So we are going to get right into the conversation, and we'll focus on three things in this conversation: the use of big data in agribusiness. We're also going to be looking at non-producer skills that especially the youth should be looking at to provide into this sector. And then we're going to look at how the government, especially since Tom is here, the government is working to work with counties to streamline policies and requirements for ease of business. Since you're getting right into it, I'm going to start with Stefano. Maybe you could tell us more about smart agriculture. It's a term that is being used a lot right now. Maybe you could take us through what smart agriculture is and what it's looking like right now.
Thank you, Sheila. The terms of smart agriculture is the application of new technology to agriculture, in simple terms. And it is, on one side, you have the technology such as internet, smartphones, weather forecast, but also all type of telecom connectivities. And on the other side, you have crops, livestock, fisheries. And then there is the upsurge of new technologies such as drones, IoTs, cloud computing, the use of data as a means to exchange information. And there is also artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the role of smart agriculture is to make use of these new technology. To do what? To reduce the asymmetry of information that exists between the farmers and the market. Sometimes the farmer is not fully aware of how his product or their product actually is perceived by the market. And at the end, smart agriculture is about improving the yields of the farmers using technology.
Thank you, Stefano. Maybe you could just give us a bit more examples, like how does smart agriculture look like, especially in our country here in Kenya?
There are several applications that can be, they are considered smart farming, from a smart irrigation system to more complex application that recognize through artificial intelligence, using a smartphone and placing in front of the plant and recognizing the type of pest, and then providing diagnostic recommendations, up to the way using satellite images can improve to determine the wealth or the health of a crop. And so there are several drones that patrol the fields and collect data from the field. However, these type of application can be costly, as hardware by itself is costly. So we should also consider among the use cases data. Data has, because they can be exchanged, and they can be in an infinite number of times, and producing insights that are useful both for the farmers and the market.
Thank you so much. Winnie, I want us to come to you first. I've hosted you before on the podcast, and you talk a lot about systems and how systems are needed for us to just make sure we're doing things right. Maybe you could talk to us about the importance of value chain management and why, as a farmer or someone who is in the agribusiness space, you need to see your venture as part of something else of the bigger scale.
Thank you, Sheila. And just building on what you said, most times we mix up the two, the value chains and food systems. So the value chain is actually the core part of the food system. So within the value chain, you have your actors from the input providers, those providing the seeds, the fertilizer, the labor. Then you have your farmers who actually produce the food that make up the value chain. Then you have your storage, your aggregators, your transporters, market, consumers. Sometimes we forget ourselves, we are part of the value chain. And then until recently, we didn't really consider food waste, like at the end of the value chain. So now we have those that are addressing food waste and food losses to now complete the value chain. Then within the value chain, the reason we brought in, or rather the food systems approach has started picking up momentum, is because value chains do not operate in a vacuum. They operate within a system. So the food system now brings in the social aspects, the natural environment, the policy. Politics is also a very key driver of our food system. Then we have I already mentioned the natural environment, the social environment, and the economic environment as well. So now when you have all these different elements, it actually drives now what you call the food system. And back to your question on why we need to think of agriculture, or rather food and nutrition security in the context of systems, is because there are various factors that we traditionally did not factor in when we are developing interventions around food and nutrition security. A good example I found in the field a while back when I was conducting a study on the food environment in Kisumu is the social dynamics. They had promoted a certain variety of sorghum, but the sorghum was short. So the farmers didn't adopt the short sorghum because it said it was bringing about insecurity. People could now see their homesteads, and they did not want to take up that particular sorghum. So you have researchers going to the labs, producing good variety of seeds that withstand drought, but because of some social aspects, it is not uptaken. Another example is fish. Fish is not consumed by some communities because, according to them, it's a taboo. Some say it looks like fish, it looks like snakes. So you see some of these social dynamics that, as technical people, sometimes do not really consider really important, and that is why we need the systems approach. And beyond the social aspects, you also need to look at the environment, the impact of our practices on the soil, on the water, just the wider ecosystem. Then politics. Sometimes when you bring in things like politics, they're like, what do you mean politics and food and nutrition security? But it is our leaders that are making the decisions. So we need to see how we integrate all these different parts of the food system towards driving the same agenda.
Now I just want to bring Tom into the conversation, actually, since you're our government representative. I wanted to know from you, considering agriculture, the sector is really one of the biggest employers in this country, but we also have very little data about what is really happening on the ground. Maybe you could tell us where the government stands and what plans are being made to make more data available.
Okay, thank you. Once again, before I talk about that, let me revisit the issue of smart agriculture, which Stephen talked about. As young people, we wanted to understand that smart agriculture is going to be the future, and simply understand that the word smart meaning that it is innovative, it is disruptive, not the norms. It uses modern technology. It tries to solve problems in a cheaper way. It makes more business sense, and it makes better profit for the farmers. So simply that is what, in my view, is smart agriculture. And in the case we have now of climate change, where several things are not the same, and also where we face a problem of diminishing natural resources. And here the resources are mainly land and water resources diminishing as a result of population increase. We need smart solutions to help in agriculture. And there are many cases of smart solutions. We are simply saying that look around what you can do with the technology that you have. What can you do to apply technology to make farming cheaper and better and more efficient? You can use technology to look at soil fertility, help farmers to identify soil fertility. You can use technology to look at the weather patterns, rainfall patterns, advise farmers. You can use technology to look at pests and diseases. How can you control pests and diseases? You can use technology to look at post-harvest losses along the value chains. A lot that can be done modern way using modern technology. And we believe that in Kenya, because of the youthful nature of population and the investment the government has done in terms of training young people on ICT, investment in mobile phone penetration, investment in fiber. Kenya is ranked number 14th in the world in terms of mobile phone penetration, in terms of internet access, the speed of internet. We are ranked number 14th. So it's a chance for us to use technology, disruptive technology, to solve problems in agriculture and make farming better and more meaningful to the farmer. In terms of data, I come from the government, and I admit that one of the weaknesses that we have in Kenya and many African countries is the value of data. How do we value data, and how do we understand the role of data in the modern ecosystem? We are in what is called third industrial revolution for information. And this third industrial revolution is called data and digital revolution. The first industrial revolution, which was about factories, big factories, manufacturing, big things past Africa, we didn't participate much. The second one, which was about the use of irrigation systems and all that, in the 1970s, Africa didn't participate fully. In Kenya, I know a few irrigation schemes were brought in place. But this third one, Africa has a very high chance of participating fully and making use of it. And talking about Africa, Kenya has a very high chance, a very big chance. And that is why in the ministry, we have developed the Big Data Center, anticipating the use of big data. I'll explain the role of the big data. But the role of Africa and many developing countries, the role of data to spur innovations, decision-making has not been well emphasized. But I'm happy to report that we are now at a stage where we have known the value of data, and the systems for collecting data, traditional systems for collecting data, things like censuses, things like surveys, administrative records to get data, and also the use of technology to try to improve data collection. And Kenya is a member of Global Open Data on Agriculture and Nutrition, what is called GODAN. Actually, Kenya is sitting in the committee of GODAN, and Kenya is expected to lead in terms of providing open data to the public. And as you know, if you read the Constitution, Chapter 4, Article 35, every Kenyan has a right to access to information and data. And that simply means that you, as a Kenyan, a citizen, you have a right to ask for data and get it by law. And to implement that legal framework, Access to Information Act of 2016, basically designating the government to take charge, overall responsibility of collecting data and making data available to the citizen as a public good. As a public good, because everybody needs data, big data, in the current dispensation. And so I'm happy to report that we are doing the much we can to make data available. In the government, we have huge sets of data. And I apologize to you and the public as a whole. We have not been very good in terms of making this available, but it's an effort now we are working on. And I believe in the next 2 months or so, when we open our new website, we'll try to give data to the public. open data. Open data meaning that it is free data. It is presented in as many ways as possible. You can download, you can visualize, you can use it freely, and it is your job to demand. Yeah? We have a call center in the ministry. You are free to ask and demand, and even take some of us to court if we don't give you the data that you want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. And I just want to build on to something you just said. You said now we are going through like a third digital revolution. And for me, that feels like it means there are more opportunities in the agribusiness sector, especially for the youth. So I wanted to hear from everyone on the panel. What do you think the opportunities are looking like, especially for the youth? What should we be looking at doing? What jobs? What can we do in the sector now? Maybe Winnie, we could start with you.
I think now that we have the data, the next question would be utilization of the data. So I think that is also one of the opportunity, like he said, now visualization, making meaning out of the data, because it's one thing to have data, it's another to use it for informed decision making. And I know the youth are very good and very creative in terms of using infographics to now make the data more understandable, because this data, when he talks of big data, it's like loads and loads of data across the country for various things. So the youth can come in and synthesize this information, and it goes back to my answer on food systems thinking, because now you realize the data will be needed across the system, because it will be giving us information beyond just agriculture, but in other sectors that are contributing to agriculture, and how then we can move this forward. So I think the youth can come in terms of utilization of the data, interpretation of the data, which is not a traditionally agro space career or anything, but it's something that they can look into.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Winnie. Let me also thank Tom for bringing up the issues of data, may seem strange to talk about data when you have but data is also part of the smart farming. It's not just about drones. It's not just about complex and costly hardware. Smart farming, smart agriculture starts with the data, and the data, but data alone is not enough. And this links to the question is that you also need data governance. And this morning we were discussing with Tom about, how do you handle the data governance of this open data for agriculture, and in order to make the data available to everyone, it's important to manage not only the availability, the access, but also the usability, the integrity, and the security of these data that are stored in systems that are based on data standards and policies that can actually control the data usage. And the more mature this data governance is, the more value you can extract from these data. And this brings to the fact that how youth can actually extract value from these data if they are of good quality, and this quality is increasingly increase over time. Well, they can develop application, they can develop predictive tools, they can predict diagnostic tools. There are many different applications, and in the next year we will see a lot of this application coming out. In my opinion, artificial intelligence will play a major role because there will be more data, and therefore more artificial intelligence will be able to use these data, create more value out of those. So I encourage the youth that are approaching the agricultural sector is to look at it in a smart way, look at how they can apply technology to solve concrete, real problems, and don't be afraid to test, to pilot, to fail, because the way forward, as Tom said, is going to be more digital agriculture, and we need youth to be able to understand that, because the agricultural sector is mainly dominated by an average age that is above 60 years old, and it's difficult for them to uptake technology. So my call is for the youth to engage into agriculture, agribusiness, use technology to make it more valuable and increase the revenues. Thank you.
Can I also say something on that? We're talking about third industrial revolution, which we are calling data and digital revolution. It starts with the data because the digital revolution is about artificial intelligence. You know, before the machines, computers, chips were put together to develop communicating systems and platforms, people did not know that only human being can think better. Yeah? That it is human beings who make computers, and therefore human being is the super thinker. But the world of artificial intelligence has proven that the machines can learn and can think. And can do things which human beings cannot do. Are we together? That is the basis of artificial intelligence. But the artificial intelligence requires data. The machines require data to learn. So, if you get to your laptop now and search for something, depending on the search tool, several queries that have been made on that tool, you will see the computer leading you to some common field, isn't it? Yeah? Because so many people have input data in that field. Okay? Therefore, if we make data available, make it free, make it available, and make it as big and as large as possible, then the citizen, you who have these gadgets, can apply the science of artificial intelligence, those machines to learn, and then solve problems, come up with innovations and tools. Therefore, you cannot talk about innovations, you cannot talk about digital platforms without addressing availability of data. And so now we are telling you that if we give you big data, make data available cheaply and freely, you have a chance to look at that data and apply the systems you have, the tools that you have, to come up with solutions, come up with the new ideas, to come up with better businesses. Yeah? For example, we export horticulture to the value of almost 100 billion every year. Okay? But most of you have not seen that data. You don't know which are these crops that generate the money. And you'll find some are very, very, very small, simple crops. You don't have the data. You don't know which markets we are selling to, which value chains are coming up, which value chains are going down. So suppose we gave you this data from as far back as possible. We gave you data on horticulture export, say 30 years back. Then you can have a chance to look at all this big data and say, oh, I discover here there's a trend. This crop is coming up. This thing is going to make business. And apply technology to use that data and come up with something. Yeah? If we give you data on pest, diseases, soil, fertility, water, resources, rainfall patterns, and all that, you have a chance to use that big data and your platform to come up with a solution, which will be better, which will make better sense, better businesses for the youth, than if you are going to do things the normal way of just waiting to train farmers and plant things the normal way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. And as we continue, I like what you've said about data and how you're supposed to use it. Maybe as we conclude this first part on big data and move to the next part of the conversation, I'd like to hear from the panel trends you have seen in smart agriculture, especially in Kenya or Eastern Africa, and the trends that we should look out for, especially in the next 10 years. What are, someone who wants to farm in 10 years, what should they start knowing or should they look out for?
Maybe I can say, for me, that in the next 10 years, there will be, like I was saying before, more, the use of artificial intelligence will become embedded in every technology, in every single application, and this is because the amount of data will be more accessible. And as Tom said, we need data to train the models. And how do you train a model is that you need a high-quality data set, label images, for example, for with plants and related diseases, for example. We are discussing with Carlo about, they have a data set in Kenya, they have a data set of 1 million images, all labeled, that define the type of pest. And now if you can use, run some, you can easily develop an application that will make a diagnostic of what type of pest that is by looking at the image on the plant on the field and also giving recommendation. But not only that, is you have to think that the possibility now of, like Tom said, about the use of big data is enormous. Imagine that you, not only the data that you collect yourself as a farmer, but the data that you match with the so-called non-traditional data or innovative data, such as satellite images or telecom data. And you bring them together in one data platform, which enable to process this data and then give the possibility to access to the data platform with different level of security, obviously. But then you develop your algorithm, you develop your application using high-quality data sets. And this will be a revolution in the moment that the government will be able to make a high-quality data set available. Then an incredible amount of opportunity will open, because one application that is developed in India or in Europe, and you can actually take the same algorithm, most of the time they're published in the GitHub, and apply it to your own data set and get immediately have predictive capability or analytical capability. So if that is the future, the question is, how do we grab that future? Are we going to sit here and wait? I think that will not work if we do not upskill the youth, and we need more data scientists, we need more data engineers, we need more developers, but we also need people that are in the digital arena, that are able to translate the problems of the farmer into solutions, applications that can actually work and solve the problems. And this is, for me, the biggest challenge, to encourage the youth to upskill themselves. Starting from primary school with mathematics and STEM in general. So, yes. Tom, you want to add something?
Looking at me, the future, the way I look at it, I want you to look at what's happened to our country in the last 3 years. It is clear that things are not normal in the agriculture ecosystem. We are having more droughts, unprecedented levels of droughts. There are some counties which have gone for 3 good years without any proper harvesting. So climate change is real, and we have to find a solution for that. And we are saying that we are now in a new revolution, a digital revolution. So the future is the use of digital systems, disruptive systems, to solve the problems that we face. And the biggest problem now are the impacts, the effects of climate change. In our country, we have a problem with natural resources. If we are to rely on the normal farming methods, the dependency on rainfall, that capacity is declining as population keeps increasing. So the future is about coming up with policies that make us fit the climate change and make us utilize the remaining natural resources that we have so that we maximize on their profitability. As Stefan is saying, the future is about use of data, and therefore we need more data scientists. We're talking about things like algorithms, things like modeling, and application of ICT to solve problems that we face on a daily basis. I see that as a future. Another future that is coming up strongly is the use of the Earth observation tools. And these Earth observation tools are basically satellite, drones, which are used to get data and information remotely, but which are more powerful. And previously, these tools were not accessible to many people. Developing countries, they're not accessible. But now, following the push for the open data and the realization that we need Internet of Things, we need data to be open and available, we are beginning to see most of this data becoming easily available. At the government level, most of the satellite images that used to be very expensive, now most of them, we are able to get them nearly free. And I see this as a future that we are going to have a lot of innovations that depend on satellite remote sensing to solve problems which before we are not able to solve normally because of inability to access that kind of data sets.
Thank you. Winnie, did you have anything to add on?
Probably looking at it from, again, systems thinking. I see a future where making decisions will be easier because we'll have the information. Having systems such as market information systems, which is a big gap and only picked up a lot during COVID, where we could not rely on physical markets, so we had to go digital, shopping online, and a lot is moving towards that particular end. So it's going to change how our food system actors interact, or as opposed to physical interactions now towards more digital interactions. But also as they were mentioning the whole digital move and technology, what was at the back of my head is as we move towards more innovation and brilliance, there's this other aspect that we also need to remember, the circular economy and what it is doing for the environment. Because as we upgrade from one technology to another, there's a lot of hardware that becomes waste. So what happens to that? So there needs to, as we move in terms of technology, we also need to be cognizant, is it sustainable for our economy? Is it sustainable, for our environment? And also looking at leaving none behind. Is it suitable for everybody? And I'm talking in the African context. I know our digital penetration in terms of internet and mobile is very diverse, but there are still very many people to whom technology has not reached. So what happens to those ones? So as we move through this, he calls it the third phase, we need to also look at it holistically, looking at the impact on the environment and also the social fabric to ensure that we are leaving none behind. Even the older folk, we need more awareness. I know it's very hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but if everything is changing, if a whole supermarket is now going digital, where will the older folk shop? So we need to see how we can integrate all these different elements to ensure that even as we move towards more technologically advanced systems, that we are leaving no one behind.
Thank you, Winnie. There's something that Tom actually mentioned about food insecurity. We are in the middle of a drought where there are Kenyans who don't have food, but we also have other counties that are talking about having an oversupply issue and not being able to reach the market. So I just wanted to hear from everyone, especially you, Winnie, since you're our food systems person. Why do you think we have this problem that Kajiado, there can be no food, but people in Nyandarua are crying? They're saying we have more than enough and we don't know what to do with it.
I think, thank you for the question. I think there are various ways to look at it. First, the situation in Kajiado is very dire, but it's highly attributed to the climate change. So there's a lot of adjustment that needs to go in terms of building their resilience and their adaptability to the current climate conditions, because this is, I think, the 5th drought in a row, so the effects are diverse. But also looking at the balance of food production, or rather food scarcity and food abundance in the country, I think it's more of a logistics issue and planning, so that we are able to balance out food within the country, transporting of the food from one region to another. And when you go further down to look at why it is not happening, that is when now we bring in the systems perspective, because you realize agriculture might be responsible for producing the food, but they are not responsible for constructing the roads. And in some cases, it is just a matter of having good roads to ensure that the food is transported from one point to another, or it is the cost of transportation. So you see, it is a fuel issue. Do we now support in terms of transporting the food? How do we address the issue of fuel? And sometimes it is an information issue, market information issue, because based on the studies that have been done, one of the major contributing factors to food loss is market access, limited market access. And when you dig deeper, it is not that there is no market, it's just that where the information on where the market is, how much is it selling there. So it's various issues that are contributing to the current situation that we are seeing. And it will go back to the data. Do we have the data that is really showing us what the problem is, so that even as we develop solutions, we are not addressing symptoms of a problem, but we're addressing the problem itself? Yeah.
If Tom, you had something to say on the same?
Yeah. Sometimes you work in the government, you are sitting in your room, you are tired, you've gone to rest in the evening, then you see in the TV, one part of the TV showing people are really demarcated, have not eaten for weeks, and are just bones. And on the other side of the TV, you see some people having too much vegetables, they are feeding on livestock. And we're in the same country. One thing is that as a government, this is something that can be done. We need to have a working department on food distribution. I know it is done in India, where there's a whole department for food distribution. And the idea here is that if you are in a system like ours, where you have population that are not congregated together, like in many developed countries, you find people staying together maybe in cities or sub-cities, and therefore accessing them is very easy. But if you have a system like ours, where some people stay very far, interior, very remote areas, then you must have a practical solution of how to distribute food to them. Yeah? And that is about logistics. It's about investing on a simple storage facilities right inside those areas, and logically distributing food to those areas, practically distributing food to those areas, especially grains, because they are more stable and they are easy to stay longer. So we have a system where the government buys these grains and deliberately assists to transport them to those far-flung areas. It requires a national budget, yeah? An effort that if it is done, we shouldn't be having these problems. And this is also tied to what is called contract farming, where having known the population that demand food in those areas, we can contract farmers, and the current administration talked about guaranteed minimum returns. That is where you can apply that philosophy of saying, we need so many tons of wheat, we need so many tons of rice. How many farmers are willing to produce these tons? And you are guaranteed a price, yeah? And then you mop up those commodities and deliberately transport them, either using the railway system, the way it is done in India, or using our road system, or facilitating the lorry, the loan owners, giving them concessions and incentives so that they can transport those things to those far-flung areas and distribute food. Yeah? We also have other innovative ways of giving people food. You can have voucher systems where people are given vouchers, and discount shops where you open up kiosk shops which give discount prices, and very poor people go with those vouchers to get food at a subsidized level and make sure that we access food. So the issue of too much being produced here and too little the other side can be sorted out. Thank you.
Can I add something? In addition to what my colleague has mentioned, we are also supporting local food systems. So through like climate smart agriculture, because there's the challenge of them not having the food for now, and we can give them food aid assistance. But in the long term, we want to see their resilience improved. So there are also technologies that do not necessarily need too much water smart technologies, climate smart technologies that they can use. And you'll be surprised when you go on social media or when you go on the internet, there are areas, even where there is hard hit drought, there are some farmers that are still producing. And I think there are some counties that were traditionally on the list of those that required food aid that are not in the list right now. And it is because of some of these technologies. So I feel like there is hope in the near future. There is hope that with continued support, that the families and the communities that are worst hit by drought can also go into their own production. Then another thing is on value addition and processing, which is something that has been promoted now. Especially now for this particular example, we are looking at high abundance and low abundance. But sometimes you'll find it is by season. So you have like the first few months, there's high abundance, the next few months, there's nothing. That's why sometimes you see people saying, tomatoes zimeisha kwa soko. Sorry, for those who don't understand the Swahili, the tomatoes are not in the market. And a few weeks ago, tomatoes were going a crate for 300 shillings. So when we introduce value addition and processing, and not just for grains alone, for fruits and vegetables as well. But that also calls for awareness creation in consumption of these value-added products, because very few of us know how to even use dry tomatoes in cooking or dry vegetables. People are worried, is it as nutritious? Does it taste the same? And it is nutritious and it tastes the same. So there's a lot of awareness to be done at the consumer end to consume these products that are value added. And it will also be easier for us to transport dry fruits and vegetables as opposed to fresh fruits and vegetables, because they're really bulky. Yeah.
I forgot to mention something about use of technology. and I can challenge this youth here. Can we come up with a national marketing, virtual marketing platform? And this is a platform that you can partner with the government. So we give you the prices of commodities. Right now in the ministry, we are getting data on over 135 markets on a daily basis, real-time data. This is data that we can give you. You can have a virtual marketing platform where farmers can show what they have with some quality parameters, declare what they want to sell. Then buyers who want to buy can check what is available, can bid for those that is being sold. You have transporters and agro-dealers also in the platform. You can get transporters coming to help transport those things. That can also solve the problem of food distribution and the problem of some people they don't know where to sell, and that can be solved using digital platforms. Thank you.
You had something to add, Stefano?
Yeah, I think there are certain climate adversities brings impact the country in a different level in different countries, and there are things you cannot really control, not even with the current level of technology. The drought is the drought, but there are other aspects, such as the pest prevention, pest mitigation, that can be prevented. And you know that the pest, once you enter into one crop, it disseminates and it spreads out very rapidly across the whole country. So if you can actually prevent by early warning the farmers and the various stakeholders to put in place mitigation strategies, then the pest can be stopped before it spread out, and that is today possible both with the technology and the data that we have available. There are other aspects that are important to address when that shows that there are certain countries that do better than others, but probably we will not want to take it this longer. But if you have other questions,
sure. Sometimes we learn best from watching people. So I wanted to know from you guys on the panel, what food markets across the world do you think are doing really well in terms of using big data and technology that maybe we should look at and borrow a leaf and see what they're doing?
Maybe one thing that is really well developed and it works very well is that the use of satellite imageries for any different type of prediction and analytical tools, because they use the so-called normalized difference vegetation index, which enables to reconstruct from satellite images the health of the crop. And that is widely diffused across the world. And using that index, you can develop different type of applications. I will not. There are other upcoming technologies like GAN that are basically enabled to using advanced machine learning algorithms to reconstruct some of the images. And again, there is a huge opportunities there to develop new application, looking at what other people have done, because most of these algorithms are public available on different platforms, such as GitHub.
Thank you, Stefano. I don't know if Winnie, you have any input.
I would, but more on the angle of food systems, food waste and losses, the examples from other countries, not big data.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so for examples from other countries, especially in addressing food waste, because food waste, especially in the developed countries, food waste is more of a challenge to them. But generally, the whole challenge around food waste and losses is still a challenge that is being faced both in the developing and the developed world. So there are various examples, including from our own, which other countries can also take up. And also going back to technology, some of the solutions are actually linked to technology. For example, the waste bins, they now, I think it's Japan or China, that's now measuring your food waste, and you pay for it, so as a way to discourage food waste. And then we have other markets that have now gone into bulk buying. And I think that that system is also now in Kenya. It wasn't there before, but it's now in our supermarkets here in Kenya, where you only buy what you need as opposed to buying the already pre-packed food. Then one other that I also was a part of when I was back doing my studies is a food recovery center. So the food recovery center works very well with a food bank. The food bank collects donations from various grocery stores, hotels, or whoever has food in excess, and we were taking it, it calls the last hour, where before it just goes bad, then you redistribute it. So there are various successful interventions when you look at the hierarchy, either looking at prevention, such as now introducing what my colleague mentioned, the market information systems. We have redistribution, looking at soup kitchens and soup kitchens and working with the hotels. I think it's France that has now, I think it's a law that hotels and supermarkets should not throw away their food. They need to redistribute the food. So those are some of the examples that I think we can borrow. And I'm happy to say as FAO, we will be supporting the country in developing a post-harvest management strategy. And some of these ideas and innovations, we really want to include it in the strategy as we move forward to addressing the challenge.
Thank you, Winnie. Tam, I think now I'll come to you. In terms of now, you said utilizing this data, we know that there was a bit of teething problems between the national government and county government when it came to, who does what and who doesn't do what. So I just wanted to know from your opinion, how is that going now? Are the roles better defined now? Are farmers able to get help from both the national government and county? Maybe you can just take us through that.
The legal framework, that is what we normally call it Schedule 4 of the Constitution, which was trying to explain the roles of the national government, the roles of the counties. When it came to data, the law said that data will be a shared responsibility between the national and the county government. And basically, the role of the national government is on policy issues, standards of how to harmonize data collection, regulatory frameworks, so that we operate uniformly throughout the country, and coming up with the higher level data that counties themselves cannot collect. So things like censuses, which are beyond counties, the government, the national government playing a role, capacity building for the counties, and so on and so forth. But the counties are expected to participate also by allocating resources for their own data collection, a lower level data collection, of course with the guidance of the national government. So initially there were problems when we started the devolution. There was some misunderstanding. Some people thought that we now have two levels of government which should not be talking to each other. But with time we have matured. We've gone to other counties, benchmarked, see what is working. And basically, as we speak now, we are talking about the national government coming up with the policies, mobilizing resources, coming up with the systems, and the countries adopting those systems to collect data, providing human resource and also some financial resources to collect some lower level data, which basically themselves can collect better. So we are at a level where we can now understand clearly our roles. And the bigger picture is to make sure that the public gets data at the lowest level possible. So we should be in a position where we are able to have the data for each county, and if possible, go to sub-county levels, and if possible, go to lower level, like gender level, youth level, and so on and so forth, to make the data more applicable.
Thank you so much, Tom. And I don't know, wherever we've reached right now, is there anyone in the audience who might have a question? We try to keep these sessions a bit more interactive, so if there's anyone with a question, we can take it now. There's a hand.
Hello, everyone. Okay, my name is Kamodo. I'm an aggregator. Since I finished campus in 2018, I joined my brother's farm in Naivasha. And what we did at first, we produced 100 tons of potatoes, but we never had the market intelligence where to take these things. So what happened, we ran into a lot of losses and food waste. So from that, I came up with an idea, and I set up a website, because I realized that a lot of farmers are facing the same issues, because they just plant because of passion, or they do farming because of passion, but they don't know where to take it. So my platform now currently is called nawiriplantLimited.com. If you can have a look at it, it's a good site. So we help in distributing food and giving nutritional services to schools and supermarkets and groceries. So my idea is, I have been in the industry and I've seen a lot of loopholes that needs to be, like the gap needs to be filled. There's a lot of voids. Exactly what you're talking about, IT, AI, we have apps. But the issue now is we don't have support from government and the UN organizations, because we need to pay this stuff. Like this guy we just met here, he's very good in IT and stuff, but he'll ask me for 100 Gs for just an algorithm. And as a startup, I don't have that money. I have like 8 employees. I really need to be paying them each and every time. So I don't have like the support that is required. For now, I already have a virtual market that you're already saying, but I need people to support, or I need to pay people so that this program can continue going. So I really need to find you people. I can sit down with you and talk to you and help me. Here with me, I have currently a contract that I was being given by a company in a place called Ruiru. So these guys need 10 tons of potatoes every day. So a kilo of potato is 50 shillings right now, and that's a wholesale price. So that means I need 500,000 every day to be able to deliver these potatoes to this person. But you find me, because I'm a startup, I don't have all this money. And then they come and say that they'll give you a credit period of 14 days. This means you need to have 8 million cash on your pocket so that the business can continue going on. So my issue is we need more support, because we've already started whatever you're saying. Issues with AIs, drones, food waste. So there's a lot of, especially in terms of food waste, there's a lot of food waste in markets. So we are looking at ways how we can create organic fertilizers from this waste. But we need machineries, we need management systems. So we don't have that support. And there's a lot of bureaucracy in government. if I need to see you, sorry, what was your name? Winnie. If I need to see Winnie at UNEP, I'll be asked a lot of very serious questions. And then to Stefano, with our website, we've been able to attract a lot of international markets. So recently we had calls from Qatar. Now we have World Cup there. So you find these Emiratis are looking for, what do we call them, aggregators like me, people with a lot of farmers, so that they can take the groceries that we have and fresh produce, then we take to Qatar. But you find because of lack of support, and it doesn't only mean capital, we also need skills, we need incubators where we can take our stuff there and learn whatever is happening. We don't have. So my point is, I need, by the time we leave this place, I need to get your contact, and the time I come to your office, you'll readily assist me. We don't want issues of information, because everybody has information. We have internet. Everything is accessible. But now we are in the ground. We are trying to do everything, and there is no support. That is just what we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're going to take one other question before they answer. Your question was very good. How can the youth access support from private organizations and from government as well? I'm going to request that we keep our questions brief because we're running out of time. There was another question back here. Sorry, before you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. So my name is Ritesh. I head product and strategy for an agri-tech company based in India called FarmLogics. We basically create technology solutions for the whole supply chain to ensure we try to create technical solutions for all the problems which we are discussing right now. I'll make it very short. So the one question, because we were talking a lot about data collection, like how important it was. So, we are just very new to Kenya. Just 2 weeks we've been here. It's a very short trip. Personally, I really wanted to know, what are the biggest challenges you're facing in data collection here? Because only when you collect that quality data, then only we could, if you want to have an algorithm, you always need to do that on a quality data, right? So what are the biggest challenges you think, you're facing in quality data collection here? Thank you.
One more question.
My question is to Stefano Sedol. Could you touch briefly on the value chain of blockchain technology in agriculture? Thank you.
Maybe I can start from Ravesh? Ritesh. Okay. About how to bring quality to the data, or let's say what are the challenges. What we face is that I think the big challenge is to have a high quality data set in general, and to be able to standardize and process the data. We do that using what we call data platform on cloud premises. But to be able to split the process in a more simple way is that what is the first step is to create awareness within the organization that is collecting, using the data, understanding the value, because they need to understand the value of these data. Often it is not understood, the value of the data and what can be done. So first, awareness, that's what we work with our clients or with the organizations to build the awareness. The second is the challenge is the design, meaning the definition of the needs and areas of where the data can be used, and the processes for collecting and exchanging the data and extracting the value from these data. Then there is the issue of data quality, which comes into the picture. This is another challenge. If we need a high quality data set, like we said, and we need to follow. There are some standards upcoming to improve the quality. Then we're talking to, once we get there, then it becomes the tricky part, because then we need to start about talking about data integration. We have different data, different type of data, and we need to integrate it through. And then it comes the data engineering, when you need to start harmonizing this data and maybe develop the data platforms like we were discussing before. And then finally, the last step, the last challenge is to have the right data science behind, the right ML, machine learning application, and robotic process automation if need be. So there is a certain number of steps which address all the challenges in the data governance. And don't know if I answer your question, but there are many challenges that are not technological. They are more organizational and are more dealing with building the capacity and the skill within the organization or the system that needs to work with the data. Thanks. And maybe answer here in front on the yeah, there was the blockchain, but first, and the other one, I think is, you said something important, very important, and we experienced within our program, Markup, that the conventional supply chains have been characterized by an imbalance of power within the farmers. Often they have less power, like you said, because they have less information about how their product performs relative to the customer requirements. So there is this power imbalance, like you were saying, with you have a lot of potatoes, and you at the beginning, and not the right market. The market linkages were broken, or issue about access to credit in order to finance the acquisition to the from the smallholders. So if your platform or your website address this issue of power imbalance and with the farmers, and I'm happy to look at it and see how we can take it further. And about blockchain, we've been looking at the. I'm fascinated by the blockchain, although I'm more into the artificial intelligence space. I think the blockchain, they have a very interesting application. We've been piloting few. Mainly, I think today what is easy to do within the farming sector is to connect the product to the market, to the consumer, so that the consumer, especially in Europe, wants to know where this product comes from, the story of the product, is it organic? He wants to see almost the face of the farmer, because there is this idea that health products so the blockchain is very useful for that, but also very useful application for there are verification points across the value chain when you want to have a smart contract on a specific type of a point of control, and that can be have a sort of a more than a timestamp, a real smart contract that defines the uniqueness of that particular verification. It can be a test, it can be a certificate, it can be anything that needs to be validated in a unique moment in time and a uniqueness. Yeah, I hope I answer all. Thanks.
Okay, I want to address the problem of the young man that is has come up with solutions but lacking support. In the Ministry of Agriculture, we have two units that are supporting the youth. Yeah? And I want to give you, because I'm a public officer and we are serving the public, I'm giving you the telephone numbers of the coordinators of this project. So you can call them directly or just go to the office, the ministry, and say you want to talk to so-and-so to help you. That is not violating, because we are public officers and we are serving the public. I just give you the telephone number, call. Yeah, and say, I was in a meeting and I met Mr. Tom, and he told me that you are dealing with the youth. Can you help me? I have this problem. Yeah? So, we have a project funded by Africa Development Bank, where we are giving youth technical support, trainings, incubation support. The project coordinator 0718 377704. 0718-377704. That is the project coordinator. So there are things like incubation services, training programs, how do you get funding should be addressed. When it comes to more youthful engagement, we also have 0721 89 8087. This is more to do with the youth in agriculture, 4K clubs, schools, youth in schools, colleges, programs that support that kind of activities. We also run, in collaboration with the World Bank, in collaboration with the other agencies, we also run innovation competitions where we allow youths to come up with their programs. Like now the one you're describing, you just need to package it properly and you are given a platform to present it. And if it makes a business case, then you get a financial support to jumpstart the program. And the things you are seeing like DigiFarm, DigiCows, they came from that kind of arrangement where we gave them a chance, they present, then we approve for them to get those kind of funding that you are talking about. We also have other funding programs like the youth funds, the government, which we have a problem with this fund getting to the youths. The youth complaining of protocols, procedures, but us in the government, we are complaining of nobody coming up to take the funds. So these are also avenues that you can use to facilitate. For sure, if you have a good concept, good idea that is able to work, you should be able to get some financial support right now if you go to the right places and knock those doors and keep knocking those doors. About the problem of data, as I said when I started, the developing countries, African countries especially, how we value data and invest in getting data has been one of the biggest challenges we have. Data collection is not very cheap. To collect reliable data, useful data, large-scale data, you need some good investment in the procedure to get those data to some global standards. Yeah? So, procedurally, at that high level of data, we need censuses of agriculture. If you're talking about agriculture, then from the census, you know the structure of agriculture. How many farmers do you have? How many are small scale? How many are large scale? What are the farm sizes? Those variables. Then from the census, you come up with what is called a sampling frame, a master sampling frame. Therefore, from there, you can take samples. If you want to collect data on beans, on rice, you have the list of farmers that have beans. You sample those farmers using required standard of sampling. You go to the sample farmers, administer some tools to get the data, and collect the data. That is getting reliable data. So these standards procedures of getting data is what we have not really invested in. Not just Kenya, but many developing countries. We have been relying more on what we are calling administrative data, whereby you have field extension officers, and these field extension officers, you give them two responsibilities. One is to do extension, another one is to collect data. And they're collecting data by estimates. Yeah? And because it is simple, you can give instructions, somebody can give you those estimates, and you live by it. But that does not give you quality, reliable data. The standard procedure is to get the sample sizes, sample those farmers, use tools like tablets, develop questionnaires, go there, hire enumerators, collect the data, and make data available realistically. We are now having use of modern technology, especially the use of satellite remote sensing, but it is only to supplement the whole area of data collection. Because the satellite technology will not give you the cost of farming, the cost of inputs. It won't tell you post-harvest losses. The satellite can map the area, can give you, can estimate production, but there are a lot of data sets that you can only get by going down to the farm level, to the household level, and realistically getting that data. So that is, to me, the challenge of getting good investment in collecting reliable data and making sure that we use modern technology like tablets to get data and process data faster and get real-time data.
Okay, I can give an opportunity for 3 more questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wayne Tiompati, and I work for the Tegla Loro Pepis Foundation. I come from Kajiado, and our organization deals with pastoralists. Now, my question is in regards to climate change and how data, especially how technology can be used to bridge the digital divide gap that is currently facing our pastoralist communities. Because for so long, our pastoralists have been marginalized on so many issues. And right now, the biggest concern that I'm seeing right now is that when it comes to technology, especially with farming and every other thing, the risk of being marginalized is also very present. Because most of our communities, they solely focus on beef farming and dairy farming. They are not so big on crop farming. Now, how can we combine our efforts in such a way that we can be able to bridge the gap that is currently present in our pastoralist communities and create interventions that will ensure that we at least get somewhere ahead when it comes to crop farming and also with beef farming and dairy production? So that's what I need answers for.
Can I? Thank you for...
Yeah, my name is Eric. I think my point goes pretty much closely to whatever he just asked. From my view, I think solving sort of like the problem around food is 3 things. So understanding where food is produced in abundance, figuring out where the food deserts are, and C, figuring out where populations are rising the fastest, and thus ensuring that food is produced in those areas accordingly. So I think in the spectra of like this nation, we fall under all 3 categories. We have areas that have food abundance, we have areas that are food deserts, and we have rapidly growing population. And in my view, I think commercialization of agriculture is perhaps the most fastest way to be able to plug that gap. I'm just thinking out loud, like whatever we've seen in wheat, where wheat is grown in high quantity, it's traceable, and it reaches the millers on time, and they're able to produce it and serve the domestic market in whichever way. But anyway, my question is, in your view, do you think perhaps that's the solution, where we, A, mechanize, and B, focus on rapid, large-scale commercial food production to at least attempt to fight the food sort of like challenges that we have. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question for Government of Kenya to Tom. My question is on the digital transformation bit. I think we've mostly mentioned that most of the data that you have is mainly from you. So I'm wondering if you're creating room for other parties to enrich the data you have. So an example is, I think, what he said. And also we have companies like Twiga Foods. So they have an idea of where the market is, where the farmers are, where the storage is, where the transport, logistics bit, and so on. And they have it in the form of big data. So it means every day there's requests for produce to be taken from this location, to be taken to this point, and so on. So are you making room for, as part of the digital transformation bit, are you making room for such actors? Or even like what you're saying about the cost of imagery. So we have initiatives like Flying Labs. So Kenya Flying Labs are a non-profit organization that collects drone imagery over different places, and they're looking to partner with agencies such as government and so on. So are you creating room for them? And for the other panelists, it's the question on usability. So I think you've all highlighted that, yes, there's data somewhere, there are algorithms somewhere, and so on. But part of the food system being the end user, on either side, being the farmer or the consumer. So on the farmer side, so I work in location intelligence. I work for a company that makes GIS software, Esri. And one of the challenges I've experienced in terms of trying to have a conversation on the aspect of the end user is, fine, you can come up with all these solutions. I mean, we have Earth observation data being available from sensors. And fine, we have like a satellite image or we have these sensors showing us what's the situation of soil moisture and so on. So is there any effort by any of your organizations to have this usable at the farmer level, whereby they can get alerts or they can be able to synthesize this information to inform them that probably we've had abnormal or an anomaly in soil moisture over time, so we can predict by the next season, when should you plant? Should you plant immediately at the beginning of the season? Should you wait a bit, considering how things are transitioning and so on? Thank you.
Can I start? The last discussion about the use of data to solve farmers' problem at individual farmer level, that is where we want you people to come up with solutions. If you are able to access some data, process that data to come up with some innovations, then how can you make a business case to be able to give it to the farmers so that the farmers can either purchase the services or you can get support from partners to purchase the services on behalf of the farmers. So there are so many problems that farmers face, whether they are soil-related problems. You can help farmers doing soil fertility tests. Pest diseases, you can have solutions to control pests. And come up with the e-extension platforms that you can either bring to the government, go to the counties, and enable farmers to access those services digitally. In terms of data gathering, as I said, we are having a big data center in the ministry, and our goal is to have as much data as possible. So apart from the government-generated data, we also partner with the private sector, those who have data sets, if they can give us those data sets to help the public. We are able to sign MOUs, non-disclosure MOUs, so that we can agree on what can be disclosed and what cannot be disclosed. under what we are calling the data governance framework. And so you give us the data, and we are able to put the data sets together and enable the public to get that data. So it is true, it's not just the government alone that collects data, the private sector, a lot of it they collect, and we welcome to partner with those agencies like One Acre Fund, Acre Africa, the giving us those data, and we share them with the public. The issue of the drought in the ASAL counties and animals dying there, to me, it is just a business opportunity. Yeah? If you come from those ASAL counties, what solutions can you offer to the farmers? What ideas do you have that can help those farmers either to predict through early warning, strong early warning systems on what is likely to happen, or come up with systems to offtake, we call it livestock offtake, to purchase the animals, or to have some centers where they can be taken there, and during the dry periods they are put together there, they are given adequate feeds without moving them recklessly up and down. Concentrate them somewhere where at that place you have enough water, enough feeds, and then make money out of it. Yeah. The other time we were discussing with some colleagues, how about collecting those bones, which are scattered everywhere? You see photos of bones of dead animals. Can't you think of what can be done with those bones? Yeah? You're supposed to gather them and put them somewhere. Can they be used for biology? Can they be used to develop some products? So much as we have problem, we are supposed to have solutions out of those problems and innovative ideas of how to help the farmers, early warning systems, or if they face calamities like they have now, what can we do to solve those problems? Come up with solutions and present them and knock the doors so that the solutions are funded.
Thank you, Tom. You cover most of the issues. Maybe just a couple of thoughts. Is that large farmers are already understood the benefits of smart agriculture and precision agriculture, and because it's seen on the bottom line or their business, and whether it is automated tractors or weather station or IoTs or drones, but they have the capitals to invest, and also they have the space to make it more sustainable. Now the problem is with the smallholders, how do we make them? How can we help them to use technology? And there is an obvious dilemma there, because there is a digital divide when we talk with the farmers, but there is something that they are passionate about, and it is their product. Smallholders are definitely passionate about their product. So if we make them understand that by registering in a service for alert of pest, and this will give them that information, and they can make their product better, because they spray before the pest comes, or they put in place some mitigation measure. Then if you speak their language, I think there is a chance to address and also there are aggregators and cooperatives and production groups. They can be responsible to collect the early warnings and then talk to the farmers of their communities. Within every community there are heroes, there are people that are able to influence and tell to their fellow farmers how to do better, and by definition farmers copy what the better farmer does. They're just copying. It's safer. So making them understand the value of that data in their language, I think, is key. It's not much the technology that, it's not a technological problem, it's more of a cultural problem. About husbandry, and there are several use cases that, same use cases that you thought we discussed in the horticulture can be applicable for the cattle. Imagine just weather forecasting via smartphone. It's not something that we normally associate with smart agriculture, but they can have a profound effect on the decision making. Just an early warning that, or a flood or a storm or any type of weather adversity can provide to the smallholders the idea to locate their herds somewhere else, to a higher ground, for example, or just somewhere else. Or smartphones can be used also to detect biosecurity risks. This is true for the pest, but it's also true for any potential disease or outbreaks in the area. And so they can stop grazing in certain areas or certain common areas, which will be mostly affected by the biosecurity risk. There are others, if you're interested, it's just offline. Just grab me and I'll be happy to answer your other questions or give you other use cases. Thanks.
Winnie?
Wow. Wow. They have given us quite a lot of information. I guess this is what the data we are talking about. So we need someone who will synthesize all this information and give us the key takeaways, because that was quite a lot. What I can add in response to the gentleman that that first had a question. First, kudos to the innovation. It's actually very innovative and it's something we need. We do work with the youth. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't get to meet everybody because the youth are many, the solutions are many. And what I would encourage you to do is work closely, especially with the county government, because most programs these days, when we implement them, we work with the national government, but because agriculture is devolved, we implement most of activities at the county. So before we work with anyone in whichever county, we pass through the national government. We pass through both the national it's the gateway to work with anyone in Kenya, but also at the county level, we work really closely with the government. I can give you examples of a program we recently, one we are about to close, one we closed, and they were all on urban food systems. And we supported, I think, a number of 30 SMEs to upscale their innovations through in-kind, through capacity building. And also we are now seeing, I think the whole food system is evolving, so even our approach to our interventions is changing. So these days there's a lot of conversation about accelerators, incubators, mentoring and coaching. The youth don't want to be taken to a training institution for 1 week. They want someone to actually come to the ground and work with them at their business level. So those are the ideas that are coming with our new programs, and I'm happy to continue the conversation with you later, because you have various youth programs and probably you can see where you can fit in the various programs. To the gentleman at the back, what we have worked on, the one from the ASLs, what we have seen successfully being implemented through our programs is behavior change communication, moving from just the pastoralism. Like I mentioned to you at the beginning, when you take a food systems approach, you realize there are so many social factors that affect the success or the failure of your intervention. So there's a lot of behavior change communication that we have done to encourage the communities to go into crop production, first for their own consumption, because they realize their consumption is pretty low, and also the excess they are able to now add value and sell. And it is something that has actually picked up quite a bit in Turkana especially, and we have very many communities whose nutrition has improved and also their livelihoods have improved because they have more income from their produce. Then there was a gentleman that mentioned something on large commercialization. I agree with you partly, because we can go into commercialization, I agree, but the large-scale part might be a little bit difficult, because when you look at how land has been subdivided in Kenya, it will take quite a while to go back into aggregating the land. It's a conversation that has happened, especially from our land governance program. They're really promoting land bulking. So it is something that can be done, but for the current future, for the present, we can go into commercialization, looking at increasing production and productivity, but through aggregation, bringing the farmers together to sell together. Like he mentioned, it is easier to sell when you have more than when you're just one farmer. But also when we started introducing the whole aspects of working as a group, we realized there's a lot of awareness and capacity that needs to come in group dynamics, because that was the beginning and the failure of cooperatives in Kenya, the group dynamics. Once the business starts booming and there's money in the business, drama starts happening. So we are doing a lot on capacity building on group dynamics. Then there was another question on data. The question on data, I would say, I think my colleagues have also alluded to it, but I will also add the capacity in terms of the data collection. Sometimes if we may have these conversations and think that we don't have the capacity in terms of the technological prowess or the technological advancement in assessing or analytics part of the data, but sometimes it's just a matter of collecting. Data collection is very expensive, very, very expensive. Having enumerators collect that data, understanding that data, analyzing that data is quite expensive. And the challenge we have is not that we don't have the data, is the data is very fragmented. Unfortunately, every partner or every development partner, the government, the different projects, everyone is collecting their data individually. So that is probably where they come in terms of coordinating and consolidating this data. And FAO worked closely with the government to develop KIAMIS. KIAMIS is a tool that is going to look at somehow integrating this data so that when you have your project, you don't have to go again. Because there's also the other side of the beneficiary. The farmer has, I don't know what it's called, is it data fatigue? Because every time you're coming, you're asking me my name, my age, my gender, my acreage. I mean, it has not changed. You're the 10th person coming to ask me this information. Can this information be put somewhere? So those are some of the solutions we are working in. And also to address, I have so many answers. To address your question on application of the data, what FAO is doing is we work closely with the government to ensure we support the extension, because it's one thing, like you said, it's one thing to have the data, it's another to understand the data, then utilize the data. So we work closely with the extension officers through the training of trainers model, where we capacity build the trainers, and also in a way facilitate them to share this information with the farmers. But because of sustainability issues, we also now go further to now identify model farmers who can continue sharing this information with their fellow farmers and ensure that the data, that the information is utilized even after our programs. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Winnie. And guys, I think we have come to the end of our webinar. I want to say a big thank you to all of you who took your time to come here and the questions you've asked. I myself have learned so much from this webinar. We want to thank everyone watching at home. And also, finally, this podcast has been made possible by Markup Kenya, who are funded by the EU. And thank you to the team at Semabox for organizing this for us. So thank you, guys.